Hello Libra, welcome to your reading with me, Cindy. So Libra, in this reading, we're going to look at your current and future energies. I'm going to do that with the archetype deck. What do you have here? Child Orphan. And I'm going to see what's influencing this with the Wild Unknown Oracle. And then we've got Heaven and Earth Tarot. Teeny tiny Rider Waite, ready to go. All right. Libra, this has been an interesting week. Very interesting week, Libra. Oh, okay. All right, Libra, my cosmic scales of justice, current energy and future energy for Libra. Libra, current energy and future energy. Wow. Oh, you got rebel. You are the rebel. Right now, you're a rebel. Challenges authority to affect social change. Reject spiritual systems that do not serve inner needs. Sorry, I feel like I'm falling out of the chair. The shadow rejects legitimate authority out of anger, rebels out of peer pressure or fashion. It's interesting. This is such a teeter-totter of energy. Light, shadow. Oh, okay, let's see where this goes. I'm going to keep pulling cards. You know, in some ways too, like I find you can really, looking at this, the rebel, like the light or the shadow. I mean, challenging authority to affect social change. And then at the bottom of that, the shadow rejects legitimate authority out of anger. But why is there anger? Maybe there was some injustice, you know what I mean? So, but then those imposing the authority, however that authority could be showing up in your life, it could be like a parent, could be a cousin, could be bylaw officers, it could be, I don't know, you know, like all sorts of things. I just find it could really, this could come down to perspective and who's sitting on what side of the fence. It's really interesting energy, Libra. Okay, Libra. Let's see who or what your energy is in the future. Actually, the one part here, though, rebels out of peer pressure or fashion. That definitely is not, I don't think, you know, well, it could be this, it could be that. No, that's really like you're just trying to do it to look cool. You don't really care what the consequences are for perhaps others or yourself, but that's not necessarily the shadow. Let's see where this goes. In the future, wow, in the future you have teacher. Light is ability to communicate knowledge, experience, skill, or wisdom. The shadow, manipulating or abusing students, teaching negative traits and destructive skills. You know, the shadow, if you look at the shadows of both of these, we'll look at the light as well. But the shadow is, this one is hard to read. It's like yellow on beige. It's hard for me to read. Here we go. Okay. Rejects legitimate authority out of anger. Like if you're angry about something that perhaps has happened to you that maybe not even have to do with societal structures, but it's a personal experience that one has had, and then rebel out of either a peer pressure to do this, other people around you feeling this way, or this is the cool thing to do, and then manipulating or abusing students. And students could just be anyone who has less experience around you, teaching negative traits and destructive skills. So it's almost like taking this rebel and then doing like bad with it. But now if we look at the light, so challenges authority to affect social change. Reject spiritual systems that do not serve inner needs. So now this becomes like inner needs are really important needs. It's not just things on the surface that might be fashionable or your friends are doing it today. This is the thing to get on board with. And then taking that, right? I'm saying taking that because this is in the future. Having the ability to communicate knowledge, your experience and skill or wisdom. It almost is like the accumulation of past experiences and being able to understand it deeply within yourself and viewing the entire picture almost like outside of the box, and then how you sit in this picture of a grander scheme. And then that becomes, to me, knowledge, where you can impart this upon others and actually be helpful and continue to create change even, but through like knowing and understanding and applying wisdom and skill and experience. So it's kind of interesting, right? Really interesting. At the bottom, you have Knight. Loyalty, romance, and chivalry. A love of honor. The Shadow. Allegiance to a destructive ruler or principle. Romantic delusions. Oh my God, you have Knight and Prince. And then that's it. And that's crazy. Light attribute of the Prince. Romantic charm and potential for power. Shadow. Using power for self-aggrandizement. You know what I'm trying to say. Light, loyal, romance, and chivalry. Knight and Prince. What? That's really curious. You know what's really intriguing about the cards that you have here? Okay, if I was to think of a knight, and please let's not get political. I know that there's a lot of things to discuss that have gone on in the world. Let's not take it there. Let's just look at, on the surface, can we right now? Because yes, they're burying the queen actually today as I'm recording this reading. And one of the things that I noticed about that is the just incredible amount of protocol and everything that goes with it, like the proper uniform and outfit and everything. And then it got me even thinking about like Egyptian times. And I thought, you know, it's kind of a historical moment, regardless of how you feel about the monarchy. It's a very historical moment because myself personally, I've never seen the burial of such, I guess, a prominent monarch in my lifetime. And if there has been one, I just don't remember. But then I was thinking about, you know, Egyptian times, like there was all of this pomp and circumstance and protocol and everything that went with that too, right? Like certain people were in charge of like the burial preparation of the body and making sure that the body of the pharaoh was going into the afterlife and had all the things that they needed, and certain organs being preserved properly and everything that went with that, and having all the, there we go, having all of the right things at hand to do that. And then following this, I'm just saying, like, this is showing up like someone who follows protocol. I mean, I can't get caught up in what it says, like being romantic and charming, having a potential for power. I mean, maybe that's the underline of what all of this is, but it's so powerful in terms of the knight and the prince, like having all of this protocol. So there's almost as if there's a feeling here of someone who's come from protocol. Like that's the underline, somebody who has lived a life perhaps in some way with protocol. I mean, maybe you were, I don't think I need these now. Maybe you were in the military, in some sort of service, in a government institution, anything that could be associated with protocol, pomp and circumstance. Yeah, like following rules and regulations for some sort of a greater good. And then now what I want to say is I feel like there's something about that protocol that you are questioning, that you're questioning. I don't know how strongly you're questioning it, because these are so different. These are absolutely, this is your underline, like this is why we're here. It could be that you're just questioning all the protocol and rules and regulations that exist and the romanticism that we put behind all of that. I mean, even looking at Princess Diana's story of, you know, oh, what a, you know, and that's kind of, I think, like a wake-up call that a lot of people got to the whole fairy tale of, oh, becoming a royal and having a knight in shining armor. And with not a knight in shining armor, her life was a shitstorm. It was horrible. It didn't work out well at all. So that's kind of like, you know, there's that, even maybe observing this somehow in your world at whatever level it is. Like it could be something just, you know, very simple in your neighborhood. And again, it could be on a much grander scheme here. But now, so, okay, I'm going to be really curious to see, like, what is influencing this for you, Libra? Because there's almost like a step away. I mean, challenging authority to affect social change. But I feel like this is having probably been involved as an authority in social dynamics, in society, in some level. What was the purpose of that? To be loyal, romantic, chivalry, a love of honor. You might have stepped into something in your life, I want to say like down the at some point in the past, and there was some sort of romantic notions about this, about what you could be, what you could even perhaps accomplish, right? Because often when people get into, I don't know, anything like even to become like a prime minister or a president, you know, like people may, it doesn't seem to be like there's too many lately, but there are people that, even if we want to think like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that would step into these roles because they wanted to, where is it? To affect social change, right? But then I feel like a lot of people get into that and then they get there and they realize that there's so much legalities, there's so much depth that actually exists right now in terms of how we've created a system that's really based on monetary capitalist gains, which is in itself a fantasy about what has value. And we've taken the fantasy of what has value that really doesn't actually look at the value of human life and human experience and human emotion, and built that as the precipice of greatness in our world, which causes the human experience to be lacking. So this is such a profound reading, Libra. And then it's like you get into that and you realize there's only so much change that you can actually do. The romantic charm and potential for power. Now, okay, I do want to say there's some ego here. There's some ego here. Like, I'm going to be the one to make the change. I can do this. I feel it. I've got it all behind me. I know. And then you get in there and it's like, holy crap. If I have to fill out one more document about this, I don't know. And then the shadow. Oh, I'm gonna trip all over this word again. Using power for aggrandizement. It's not how I would. Anyways, you know, making yourself great. Like, look at me, I'm grand. It's kind of like finding your place in this system and realizing that there's really not a lot of change that you can bring into it, but you are the symbol for the grandness of it, which again, to me, is what the queen is. She's really just a symbol, it's just a symbol. This is so interesting. And please don't get mad at me. People will get mad at me, like, why are you talking about that? Look at, okay, you saw me shuffle the goddamn cards. It says Knight and Prince. I'm not going to not talk about what's happening in our world because some people are upset about the power that those people have had. If we cannot have an open discussion about things that we feel unempowered about, we will never change the power structure. So don't get mad at me, okay? Don't get mad at them. So the allegiance to destructive ruler or principle, romantic delusion. See, this is almost like, what was I thinking? So how do I save myself in this situation? Because it's almost like now you find yourself in it, you know, like even like a social worker or someone, right? Like there's this intent. I feel like there is in some way an intent, but it does feel like it feeds a little bit of ego. But I don't feel like it's a completely lost ego in that I want to make this change. I want to do better things. I know that there's a lot of people that, you know, are victims, which is funny. This has been a theme that went through this week. And I think I can do something about that. But then you get there and you can't. You're very limited to what you can do. And then I'm also getting, it's almost like the things that you do that aren't part of the system are where you bring greater change. And so, but you're in the system. You're in the system at this point. And there's almost a sense of trying to hang on to your own sense of empowerment. Well, who am I? Who am I then? How tiny am I? And then I feel like there is like use of power. Yeah. God, this is so fascinating. And now here you are, the rebel. I feel like there's a I feel like this is a very powerful energy with the background that it comes with. It reminds me a little bit, and it's funny that I would bring it up here because it's the first time was in your energy, Libra, that I brought out the Panther. And that was when I got the whole storyline of this guy, this spiritual energy that has worked in the depths of hell, like promoting the depths of hell, being the devil's right-hand man, and rising up from that and knowing like intricately and intimately how that is run, and taking that and becoming like a guide, a protector of those that are kind of victims of that dark, shadowy, low vibrational energy. And because of the background knowledge of the Panther, nothing can get past it. Like, no, they've been there, done that. As opposed to an energy that has not, you know, something that hasn't fallen from the heavens and gone into the depths of hell. Something that has just always been there. It's not, it doesn't know, it doesn't think like the devil. So in some ways, it's kind of like you think like the system. So you know in some way how the system functions. And you know, you can also look at it from a perspective of how the perspective you had before you got into the system as like a civilian, let's just say, a civilian, a regular person, and the ideas that you had to invoke change. Realizing, you know what, you got to get into the system. You got to get in there to change the system, which in some way is true, although I'm not sure anymore. But then you get into the system and you're like, holy crap, the system is just a mess. The system, it actually has almost like so many tripwires and activation sequences, I'm hearing, that prevent real change. And now I'm kind of getting the Hierophant energy, which the intention of the purity of the pure Hierophant is to bring, like, really honestly, like divinity, source energy to earth, and kind of make a system through that. But then we always get caught up in the system and it never continues to evolve. It always ends up evolving to support itself as opposed to what it was originally created to do. I'm really getting that. It becomes a system that supports itself, which again, as opposed to creating some sort of fundamental change. And that, even again, just looking at pretty much not even just a British monarchy, but most monarchy at this point, it's just a symbol of something. It doesn't really do it, for the most part. There are some things in the Constitution throughout the Commonwealth. But anyways, I'm not going to get into that. So now, so I see you. I really see this as powerful energy, really powerful. Because you're not just looking at it from the outside. You probably understand that there are some things inside and within it that really are important. They really do create some sort of balance, security, and safety. But there's so much around it that isn't, and also might even stop what is really, truly important within it from being seen. Really, actually, yeah, like even getting like, okay, so now you come up with this in the future, the teacher energy. It's just like there is a lot that you can teach, a lot that you can show, a lot of experience and skill that you have that accumulates into wisdom here. I'm kind of picking up that energy, you know, like someone who wants to get into politics kind of like at the municipal, at the local level, because you know what, I don't know, whatever's going on, and you really want to invoke some sort of social change there. Or someone who wants to be a teacher and like really be able to, like someone who wants to do it because if they want to invoke change, they want to inspire people to know that they can be so much more than what their circumstances are. Or someone who wants to be a social worker and wants to really go in there and reach into the shadows of society and help those people. Like, it's beautiful. So anyways, let's keep going. So what is influencing this? Energy too. I know, and no one's ever corrected me, so I think I'm kind of right. I think of Jimmy Carter in this energy. I think of someone who was like a president, who was the symbol of leadership and power and all of that. But you know, I'm not big. I'm not a huge. I don't know a lot about American history. I'm Canadian, but I know enough to probably get myself into trouble. But I mean, he's done so much in terms of like charity work and social organizations and helping people. Like he's really made that. Then isn't it interesting how, to me, I mean, there's so much more to his life beyond just being a president, but you know, helping, like really honestly helping. But he did more. He did more in a position outside of office, likely to help people, than he could have in the position of office. He also reminds me of something else, which was really weird. So when I was a kid going to school, we had like an amazing principal. I've talked about him before on this channel. His name was Mr. Hulley. And he made like such great changes at our school when he came. We didn't have any grass anywhere. It was all just asphalt. So he made a promise to us, and he promised that he was going to get grass somewhere in our yard, and he did. In the big kid yard, he ended up taking out half of the asphalt, left enough for, like, you know, running and basketball. And then we had baseball diamond things on asphalt. Kept the baseball diamond things, but put grass there. He put grass, and he said, you know what I'm going to do to commemorate this? We're going to put in a time capsule. So we all got together. We made this big time capsule. It was back in the day when they put them in the ground, this big steel garbage can. And the equipment was there to already, right? Like the equipment's already here. So we're going to dig a big hole. I think it was about 6 feet down. And we put this time capsule in. He said we'd be back 20 years later. He promised us. And honest to God, this man never broke his promises. At least coming from a kid's perspective. I don't know about his outside life or his relationship with teachers. But he never broke a promise. We never lifted up that time capsule. And it was one of the first times where I started to kind of recognize my own psychic ability, and that, you know, I think dead people talk to me. I can't remember at what point it was. It ended up being like some 30 years had gone by. And of course, originally when we were supposed to open up this time capsule, there was really no social media or internet. So I started to utilize it. I just got it in my head. Like I had to find out what happened with the time capsule. Long story short, he ended up I think he went from being a principal to working for the board in Toronto District School Board. And there was even, like, I connected with students because I was young. I think I was only in grade 3 or 4 when we buried the time capsule. So obviously it was like kindergarten to grade 8. So I'm trying to go quick to get to it because I know you wanted the reading, but this is the energy that I'm talking about. Is like, so there was older students in grade 7 and 8 who had reached out to him at some point. I think he'd actually retired, or he was towards the end working with the school board, and he gave her the map. He had made a map of where that time capsule was, and he had tried and tried to get money and to get equipment there to dig up this goddamn time capsule, and it never would happen. He couldn't get it done, even working for the board. And so this is the really weird thing. He got into my head. I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea that he'd actually passed away. And now that I look at it, I think he got into my head probably pretty close to the time that he had just passed away, and that I had to do this. And it was like, it would burn inside my brain that I had to do this. I had to do this. So I ended up going down to the school. It had been transformed into an adult learning center, and the old high school across from it had been like changed into the actual public school that I went to, the elementary school. So I went there, and I ended up talking with the principal at the time, the modern day time, and he was like, yeah, there's a time capsule outside my window here. I'm like, no, not that one. There is one across the street in that what is now adult learning center. And he said, what? Like, nobody knew about it. Like, that was obviously, like, and it's so interesting how fast history gets lost. So I told him all that, and he was really keen on it. He was really, really actually helpful with it. And so this is the thing. He was having trouble getting anybody to put any money to dig up this goddamn time capsule that had been down there for such a long time now. And then there was another girl that I connected with who was helping me through this. And I think I was in the process of moving to the town that I'm in now. So I kind of handed it off to her, but I got a message from, I think it was this principal, and then she texted me. And he said, you know, the old equipment, the old playground equipment that is in sort of like the primary yard, the little kid yard, that stuff was old. Like, it was so old. It was probably there from when the school was built, 1950s. And he said, there's equipment coming to take it out after like, I don't know how many years, 60 years. And he said, we can lift up the time capsule next week because that's when the equipment's coming. And I'm like, what? Okay, do it. Like, it's not much notice. We'll get as many people as we possibly can. Of course, we didn't get a lot, but we got enough. And at that point, we'd already known that Mr. Hulley had passed away. The time capsule, the equipment showed up at that school to the day, 33 years to the day that we buried it, and exactly on the 1-year anniversary of his death. It was just weird. And I swear to God, it was like him. And I thought, this is where I'm coming to this point in the story with this energy that you guys have here, is that he accomplished a task that he could not accomplish in the living. He did it in the spirit realm. Because it's almost like he was aware, like somehow he knew that equipment will be there and this will be the opportunity, because there'll be no investment that the board will have to make because they already have to pull that stuff out. So of course the existing principal brought that big backhoe thing out and we lifted up the time capsule. But it was a promise that I swear he was determined to keep it, and he did. We lifted it up. So that's what I see here. It's like there's something that once you know how it works, and then you're out of it, you almost have more power to invoke change, to get things done. So what is influencing this? This is a powerful energy, Libra. It is a really powerful energy. This is the kind of energy that it gets things done. It really does. And for the greater good. The influence of this is the elk. Oh my gosh. It's like that leadership energy. It is like the King of Pentacles to me, but it's harnessing. Look at this. It's like the backstory of King of Pentacles, of Knight, of Prince, knowing how the system and the structure works, but then you bring magic in. And that was totally right. Like the whole thing of Mr. Hulley. Being in there, he knew how it worked. He couldn't get it done in the 3-dimension, but he got it done in the spirit realm. So some of you too, you might be connecting deeper with your spiritual guides. I really feel like you're a vehicle for change. You're a vehicle for change, to create change. And now in the future, how does this influence? This is like taking this wisdom. Oh, interesting, Swan. Okay, that's really deep. Okay, so it's almost as if each time you look in the mirror in the future, you will see what you used to represent, or you will see what you used to believe in, or you will see what, like, there's an image there on the surface that almost will always remind you of all of the little details about really what's important in a system and what is just there to support the system and not the people it's meant to support. But then, like, there's a sense of depth here, like finding the depth beyond the surface, showing the depth beyond the surface. You might even connect with some people in the future, or a person that reflects, I want to say, like a very similar outlook, or a deep set of morals or principles. The Cobra. Cobra. Intense focus. Yeah, really intense focus. All right, this is where we get even deeper. So I'm going to ask, what have you been working on in the present, in the current energy? What have you been healing, and what is starting to blossom? And then in the future, we're going to ask, what will you finish working on? What will be healed? And what will be ready to harvest? It was really beautiful too, because his wife and his daughter, Mr. Hulley, they came to the time capsule, and it was, you know, it was a hard time for them because it was exactly the day of his 1-year anniversary, and they didn't know what they were going to do. But then when this came up, it was just, for them, it was the perfect way to spend that time with people that he had helped to educate and talk to. And yeah, it was really, I thought it was really nice for them. So, what have you been working on? The world. Oh my God, look at this though. This symbolic imagery here. Look at this eye looking through the keyhole at this little tiny infant that's like an orphan, abandoned. No one is looking after this little baby child. Wow, the world. I don't know who you are or what you're doing. I don't know. Sometimes you kind of wonder, like, you know, because these go out in a public space, you just never know who's coming in to watch this. But this is really beautiful. You've been working on the world. I mean, we could look at it in a very simple, oh, look at the cobra. You are the cobra. And what's wrapped around here but the snake eating its own tail? The perpetual cycle of observation, of being observed and being the observer, being observed and being the observer. Oh, no, you go there. Intensity in this. Closing off a cycle. So you're closing off a cycle. That's what you've been working on. What have you been healing? The Two of Cups. Oh, that's so beautiful. So there could be some relationships in your life that you've been healing. You could be healing yourself in terms of how you can take all the knowledge of what you've gained in life thus far and how you can make yourself a better and more whole person. But I really do feel like you've been healing relationships, like important relationships in your life. This relationship, if it's not with people, I definitely with the universe, with spirit. What is starting to blossom? Oh, wow, the wise one. It's the Hierophant. It's almost like an unconventional way of being and becoming. Maybe being and becoming. It's an unconventional way of imparting the wisdom that I feel like the Knight and the Prince have in the backstory. Well, they understand the entire history of why there is a golden gate at the front door. Everyone else on the surface is looking at that and saying, that's just a waste of money. You could use that golden gate at the front to feed all the peasants out here. But it's almost as if to say, like, you know, I'm just making this off my head. It's just an analogy. That, well, the history of the Golden Gate is that, I don't know, like, let's just say there was something that played out like 500 years ago, and somebody created the Golden Gate and they put a spell on the castle, and if the Golden Gate was always there, then the country would never fall. You know, like, it's just like, you understand, the Golden Gate's pretty important. We'll do our best to feed those people. You just let us know where they are and we'll get some food to them. But we can't sell the Golden Gate. But, you know, on the surface, everyone is like, well, why? It's such a waste of money. But right? But it is taking, like, having that knowledge, but almost like stepping out of the castle. Stepping out of the castle and seeing. Really, too, this is also embodying the energy, I would say, of, like, Princess Diana. Because in some ways, she still came from kind of aristocratic background. But she still, like, wasn't somewhat humble. She was working, like, wasn't she working in a daycare or something like that with small children. And then going into this very prominent, structured system and realizing, like, it's just like an echo chamber in here and I'm all alone. But understanding everything around it and then taking that and knowing how to make change. Right? She's almost like that energy of the Jimmy Carter. It's the Jimmy Carter, the Princess Diana. And really invoking change here in the community. It's not so much the system that you were a part of. But what you do on a personal level. So in the future, what will you finish working on? Wow, the King of Swords. Really understanding the truth in all things around you, perhaps all things. I don't know. It seems pretty vast and profound. or finish working on is the clarity of your mind, is the strength of your thoughts. I do feel like too, because there's different stages with these, you know, the court cards and the swords here with this deck. They always all have the this labyrinth or this maze in the background from them. And he's the one that stands the highest here. He stands tall on this plateau, and he can overlook the maze, right? Like he can see inside it from where he is. Again, it talks about this energy and not being in it anymore, but knowing everything about it. Every way to navigate it. Every spot where something isn't being looked after and how to actually look after something in society. What will be healed? Strength. Wow. It's like dark in the shadows too. You know, it's really interesting because the way she's like in the background, in the shadows here, there's nothing around her but her and this lion. And in some ways, it also feels like her, it kind of comes off a bit like the panther, to be honest, in the Wild Unknown Oracle, that has that really phenomenal protective energy. Taming, there's a sense of taming your inner beast. And I do feel like too, like this could also symbolize what I've been working on. To me, like there's a lot of stories that, you know, many of us have heard of, or some of you have even experienced on your own, of, you know, people that fell through the system, people that have fallen through the cracks. I mean, maybe that was you in some element here as well. And you've been working on that, like, you know, people observing you, but maybe not doing anything to help as well. And then, so I see this, what will be healed, it almost, to me, is almost like the mature grown-up of this, right? Like something that, I mean, they're just watching, but nobody's like keeping this little child warm or reaching, just looking at them. Some of you may too, I want to also say, maybe not have been in a system, but you've had to navigate and really end up working through a system. So you understand it from the, like, wholly from the perspective of, you know, like if someone has been through a disability and you've had to really like go through all the channels that exist, and you really, you know, like anytime you're dealing with the government, I don't know about you, I get so confused on their websites. They're not designed to help you. They're designed to keep you busy so you can't get the help that you need. Because they'll tell you, the government of Canada, this on their website, they'll tell you, okay, if this is what you want to do, you have to go to this on our website. But why is that not a link? Like, you can't click on it to go to that. There's only one reason that they wouldn't do that, because they don't want you to easily access it. This makes no sense. So then you find, like, okay, so then I'll Google that, what they said, but it doesn't come up. It'll come back to the page I started on. Like, you know what I'm saying? So some of you may have really navigated these systems that exist around us, and now you really understand it. Oh, I hate going on government websites. It drives me friggin' crazy. What will be ready to harvest? Oh, the Six of Pentacles. Oh my God, there you are, Princess Diana and Jimmy Carter. Giving what you have to those that really need it. And there's no in between. I think that's what really is beautiful here too, right? Like with Diana, she was able to do the charity work that she really wanted to do in the way that she really wanted to do it, right? There was no protocol around it. There was no rules around it. She could just get out there and do it. As well, like I'm just going to put like the Jimmy Carter energy. So we have a masculine and feminine coming up in this for each of you, depending on what you're going to resonate with. And then getting right to the source. It's getting right to the source. So it's just like really, oh my gosh, you have Temperance at the bottom, but it looks like, this card always throws me off because it looks like the Two of Cups. Temperance, waiting, or wait, doesn't it? It looks like, but that's the Two of Cups. These two like serpent things. Temperance at the bottom. So patience, allowing things to play out as well. But too, this also has that feeling, I said, like you healing something about yourself so that you can actually be a whole within either a relationship, a community, an ideal. And then Temperance is creating that whole, right? There's 2 cups here, but 1 cup is creating something. The Death card and the 6 of Cups. Wow. That seems so profound, the way she's coming up out of the tree like that, with all this magic and sparkle coming through her. And then the 6 of Cups, like you can see the tree there and people off in the distance. This is memories of your past. You're tempering this. Both these individuals are looking in different directions. Ending who you were in the past. You might even be ending some pretty big soul contracts that you've had with other souls in lifetimes. You're choosing to go in different directions for whatever reason. You may come together again in other lifetimes, but though this feels like a very conscious choice with the Death card and Temperance, like feeling there's something uplifting about a spiritual, a soul's path choice that you're making. His face just looks kind of disenchanted. His face looks sort of disenchanted to me. And then like her face is like really hopeful. Really hopeful. I don't even need clarifiers. That was already a long reading. Wow, Libra, I love this kind of energy. It's awesome. So I'm going to go do the extended. In the extended, we're going to look at the in-between energy. Like, so here, getting you from here to over here, what's going to take place. So any personal challenges that you need to be aware of, distractions to be aware of, and areas to focus on as you move off into this really interesting energy. Thank you so much, the Cosmic Scales of Justice. Until next time, do be gentle with yourselves. Bye.